here in just a few moments. And I don't know really how to explain myself. And sometimes when I don't know how to explain myself, I'm best if I just keep my mouth shut and don't try, because I'll say something other wrong. But I'm going to try to give you a picture. There are some statements that the Bible makes. They're not there to take up space. And you know, I don't quite understand them, even though it seems plain. To me, it opens up a whole new realm of mystery that I don't believe we have the complete picture on it. But we have enough of the picture to know that something is going on. Now, I read a statement on Facebook yesterday. It's sort of off of the subject here, but I printed it down and I thought I'd read it to you because it describes where we are in this country. And it says this: we live in a time where Satan doesn't even hide anymore. And yet, we still don't see him. Isn't that amazing? Yes. Live in a time where he ain't even trying to hide what he's doing, and yet folks still, with it there in plain view, they can't see it. There are some things going on that I think is worthy of our consideration. It's worth us taking a look, and it merits our attention, and we need to be aware of things. It's what I'm fixing to share with you is not political, not intended to be political. It's spiritual. And it's not meant to install fear into your heart or to rattle your cage in that way, but just offer some possibilities as to what's going on. Because I don't know how you guys view this, but when I look, I hadn't seen it. I took some students, and we went way over to a place called Nevada, Missouri, and I'd take them there in a bus. I'd come back, and wouldn't you know, it'd go to snowing like beat the band. But anyway, was there, and I've got where I don't even watch news or politics so much anymore because it just sickens me. Because I see intelligent people who are leading our country, and they display, and I'm not just up here cussing them and lambasting them, but I've never seen stuff that a little kid could understand, and yet they display a lot of stupidity. I'll give you one. You can look it up in YouTube if you want to. This actually happened. I saw it on TV and couldn't believe it, so I looked it up on YouTube. Some of the people at work was talking about it. There was a congressman, don't mean to call it, but he was a Democratic congressman from the state of Georgia. Did anybody see him talk to the admiral about the military people they were wanting to put on Guam, that little island? Yeah. Did you see that, Brother Steve? Yeah. He actually said what concerns him is that if you put too many people on there, and it'll capsize and tip the island over. This is what I'm talking about, folks. I sit there and think, and you're running the country. God help us. Anyway, I like to address these things from a spiritual side because there is nothing going on right now but what it doesn't involve the spirit realm in a deep way. Whether it be the kingdom of darkness with Satan and all his imps. And trust me, if that's going on, it also involves the kingdom of light with angelic hosts and all of that. There is much activity going on, and I don't mean to sound like a weirdo, but there's activity going on both sides, and I can say that confidently because I can see it manifesting in the visible realm. That's going on in an invisible realm, but it's being manifested in the visible realm. And I see that going on. Now, I'm going to say a few things, and I've done good. I've already lost my reading place. I'm doing real good this morning, but we'll find it here in just a moment. But anymore, I've got where I almost don't want to say a whole lot because I put out some YouTube videos. Some of them don't get 100 views. Some of them get 10, 12,000 views. And I've got subscribers and people writing me wanting to know stuff, and questions, and one guy, there's been a few of them, called me. And you know that's fine with me. But I've had some, and it doesn't matter what I say. And some from messages here, oh, I saw your sermon at Brother Tom's church. And they've always got something to write. There's one guy, and he wrote about a half a page on there, a whole book. And it always started out like this. Brother Bruce, you made some real good points. However, in other words, however, let me line you out because you need it. Maybe I was wrong, but I'm just getting old and tired, and I really don't care. So I wrote the guy back and said, I sharply disagree with you. And you know, brother, maybe you, instead of writing an entire book on this, you either ought to make a comment and go on, or better yet, why don't you go on to another site? Go on. Call and wanting to talk to me, my phone ring. I'd like to talk to you about that last. I don't want to talk to you about it. Ain't that awful of me to be that way? I don't care. I'm at that point. You don't like it, don't listen to it. Go on somewhere else. Well, I'm going to say some things this morning that folks will be able to find all kind of fault with, but I couldn't get away from this. So I'm going to start and call your attention to a couple of facts, and maybe we learn something from this. We are all familiar with the story over in Kings of when Ahab and Jehoshaphat was going to go up to Ramoth Gilead, and they asked all the false prophets. We're all familiar with that. And they all prophesied. Man, I mean, I've heard people say, do you honestly think that many people's wrong, Brother Bruce? If it's in contrary to the Bible, yeah, that many people's wrong. So they got one more prophet, and he said he can't do nothing but say bad stuff about me. And he went up there, and sure enough, he told him, said, go on up, go ahead. And don't tell me what the Lord said. Well, I've seen Israel without a shepherd. Told you he wouldn't. And then he goes on into to what he saw in a vision, and that's what I want to share with you. In 2 Kings chapter 22, anyway, the brother wrote me back when I told him to go on, said, this was what, have you ever heard somebody say it's day, light outside, but it's really dark outside? How can it be both? He said, I'm really surprised at your answer, but I'm not surprised to hear you say it. Well, no, what? You see, this is the mentality we're dealing with, and I've just lost patience with that. I've told Lisa, I said, it's strange. The older I get, there's some things I got patience. Oh, just patience out, coming and going. Then there's other things I don't have a drop of patience for, and that's one of them. You know, I'm said, you're just church-minded, I guess. Okay, whatever that is, I guess I am. But anyway, so I don't know who's going to see this, but I tell them, you know, if you don't like it, just go pray about it, you know. So we come to the part where the prophet had made his, well, I don't know how I've got all Baalic stuff here, but I sure have. That's 1 Kings 22, right? No, it's 1 Kings 22. Well, I'm a little Baalic stuff this morning. Yeah, I got started off on the wrong foot there. Well, I'm going to get unmessed. We're all familiar with this story about this prophet, right? Well, okay, he goes here into his vision. In verse 19, he said, Hear thou therefore the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord. Now, I want you to envision this in your mind. I saw the Lord sitting on his throne, and all the host of heaven standing by him on his right hand and on his left. Now, here he is with this great host. Court is now in session. Court has been called in the courts of heaven. And here stands the great majesty of heaven and earth. Here he sits in all his glory and power, and all his loyal subjects and angels before him. and he asked them for advice. Look at the next verse. And the Lord said, who shall persuade Ahab that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? And one said on this manner, and another said on that manner. Now, just hold on just a minute. Now, picture this. Number one, God does not need advice from anybody or anything. God knows the end from the beginning, and He's wisdom itself. Jesus Christ was the embodiment of wisdom. He doesn't need to ask for anybody else's advice. What do you think I ought to do, guys? But here we find God with this great gathering before Him, and court is now in session. A decree is about to go forth. A determination is about to be made. And God gathers all these angelic beings and says, what do you guys think we ought to do? Who's going to persuade Ahab, because he's so rotten and vile, and his time has come up, and something just has to be. And it says one of them said this manner. Well, I got a suggestion. Well, let's hear it. I don't know. The Bible says that. One said on this manner, and another said on that manner. In other words, they began voicing what they thought. Here, this is going on in heaven, in the heavenly realm. This is an awesome thing to me. It lets me know that the council gets together. Could it possibly be? I've heard this preached 100 ways. Brother Tom, I don't know how you preach. You can get up and straighten me up after it's over with. That's fine. You're the pastor here. But in Genesis 1:26, when God said, let us make man in our image. People said, well, he was talking to the other two persons in the Godhead. The footnotes in my Nelson Bible, the NIV and the King James Version, said that, and according to the Jewish tradition, they believe he was addressing the court of heaven there. Right. Yeah, but God he didn't need, no, he didn't. The Bible goes on to say that God created male and female. Well, let's just get this. If you drove by a house out here and I'd purchased it and I was having it built, but there's other guys over there nailing the walls and everything, and you said, who's building that house? You could say Bruce Hall's building it, but he's sitting down in the coffee shop. Right. But I'm the one behind it. This is God. Let us. And a matter of fact, when Daniel went in before the king, you remember the king that had the dream? And the dream he didn't know, he brought it to his wise people, and they didn't know. And so he was going to kill everybody. And Daniel said, hold on a minute, said, let me pray about this. And he comes in, and if you'll read the wording, he said, O king, we shall make known to you the interpretation. And Daniel was standing there by himself. Right. You've done that in your own life. Let's see what we're going to do about that. So that doesn't prove a three-headed God or whatever. And God, although he needs no advice, although he needs no help from anybody, he has these little verses in here that show me that he includes and involves creatures that he's made in carrying out things he wants to do. And he calls a powwow, sort of so as to say at times. That's what I get from this. It goes on down there and said, there came forth a spirit, there in verse 21, and stood before the Lord and said, I'll persuade. Hey, I got an idea. And here's what God said. Now, as if God didn't know. But he asked a question and said, wherewith? In other words, with what? What are you going to use to persuade him? How are you going to? Let's hear your plan. I've heard from these other guys, and I find their plan falls a little short. Let's hear from you. And notice there was nobody full of jealousy. There was nobody upset. Well, I think I had a good plan, and I think they should do what I said. Didn't have none of that sulking and pouting and silliness that you see in churches everywhere. You see, there was perfect unity, harmony, love abounding, and everyone, all right, let him say, the father didn't like my idea. Let's hear his. He said, all right, I'll tell you how I'm going to do it. He said, I'll go forth and I'll be a lion spirit in the mouth of his prophets. And he said, thou shalt persuade him and prevail. Also go forth and do so. You see what I'm driving at and what I'm trying to make a point. I believe that this shows us a little into an unseen realm of things that may possibly go on. Now, I may share something here in a minute, stick my neck out good and far because I've never shared it before, but I may here in just a moment just so you'll know a little further where I'm coming from. Now, right now, let's go over Let me give you a little bit of the background of this story. King Nebuchadnezzar, we all know about him in the book of Daniel. And King Nebuchadnezzar, he got all lifted up and everything. And anyway, he had a dream about a tree that was cut down and a band that was around the stump. Again, Daniel comes in and gives the interpretation to that dream. Now, I'm telling you this so we can just sort of see this as a something that goes on occasionally. So Daniel comes in and tells him, and there was a judgment handed down. It comes from heaven. The things that go on in this world do not go on without God's okay. God has not wound up this world or wound up something and turned it loose and just let it go everywhere, and him thinking, oh Lord, it's headed, oh my. God's not into that. God knows what's going on. And trust me, anything that goes on in world powers and politics, you can well bet the devil is in it, but you can well bet God's got his hand in it. And it may look like the enemy is winning. It may look like evil is prevailing. It looked like that at Calvary. The following of Jesus, they were dispersed. They were filled with fear, discouragement. They thought they were doing one thing and found out their dreams shattered and fell before them. And their master wound up delivered to the powers that were of that day and hanging out on a cross, a bloody mess. And the devil behind the whole thing, jeering and sneering, mocking and scorning and everything, filling people's hearts full of hatred. You say, boy, the devil won that round. The devil don't win no rounds. The fool that he is, he played right into the hands of God. And it's doing the same thing today. Now, this man was a big, powerful leader, and there was judgment, and there was a decree that came from God. Look at it there in verse 25 of Daniel 4. I'm getting a little slow at getting into this, but I want to bring a point out, and maybe I'm able to bring out what I'm seeing. Maybe I won't. It says that they shall drive thee from men. Thy dwelling shall be the beast with the beast of the field, and they shall make thee to eat grass as oxen, and they shall wet thee with the dew of heaven. 7 times shall pass over thee, till thou know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will. Now, verse 16, go back up to that. It says, let his heart be changed from a man's, and let a beast's heart be given unto him, and let 7 times pass over him. Now, did you get that decree? This come from God because this guy had gotten too big for his britches, and God was going to see to it that he realized, mister, you're not there by chance, and you're not there by your ability and your ingenuities and all of that kind of stuff. You're there because I put you there, and you better, and that's something I would say to our president. You're a smart man, Mr. President, and I'm not against you. You're a smart. Oh, you built an empire, a billionaire. Your success, your legacy lives the success. You're a brilliant mind. I realize that. But you and all your intelligence did not put you where you're at. Now, with that said about this king, I want to call something to your attention. You may be fully aware of this, but I'm going to show it. This. I read this here a few months ago, and I thought, what? That can't be so, but it's so. It says it right here in the Bible. Look at verse 17. This matter of him, the judgment being passed on him and all, is by the decree of who? The watchers. What? Who's the watchers? Well, I looked it up in my Strong's, and it said it's an angel or a guardian. This decree comes down by holy angels. And it says, and on the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, giveth it to whomsoever he will, and etc. But did you see who made that decree? Well, I thought God does all that. Oh, don't worry, he does. But he includes others. Amen. God saves men's souls. but he includes and involves the human agency to preach the gospel as a way and means to save them. He feeds the sheep of God with the Word of God, but he brings the anointing in a human man full of weakness and faults and failures to deliver that Word, to sustain them spiritually and be able to walk out their walk in this world. Amen. Does God need my help? Nope. Does he need angels' help? No. Does he have to consult with anybody and get wisdom? Maybe they can add to his plan? No. But he does it at times. I don't know if you read it right there. This matters by the decree of the watchers. There's a council in heaven. There is holy ones, great, majestic beings created by God. And God will sit down as he did in this other. All right, fellas? Well, what are we going to do? There's another place I can't go take you, but it's over in the call of Isaiah. Who you think God was talking to when he said there were cherubims and seraphim being very active in that? The calling of Isaiah, and the voice of God thunders out. Isaiah looked up and seen his glory fill the temple and all, and then he heard God say, who will go for us? Yeah. Who do you think will go? Do you think God was bumfuzzled and just said, I hope somebody can come up with an answer. I don't have one for this. And no, he doesn't have that at all. But at the same time, he includes this. Now, with that in mind, Isaiah speaks out and says, here I am, send me. Well, God said you was going to begin with, whether you knew it or not. So all I'm trying to do here is paint a little picture of the spirit realm and the fact that there are sometimes, there are councils, there are conversations that discuss certain happenings and things that's going on. God knows what he's going to do, but that goes on. Not only that, but there's somebody else present in those things. Go to Zechariah chapter 3 and verse 1. And I want somebody to read that for me out loud.
Verse 1?
Yes.
And he showed me Joshua, the high priest, standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan standing at his right hand to resist him.
All right. Did you hear that? He showed me, and here's a conversation fixing to take place. Something's fixing to transpire in the spirit realm. And here's God. He's represented, and then we have the prosecuting attorney there too. And he has come there to resist what God is doing, to confront God and debate. You say, I don't know about that. Well, read the book of Job. He was there present, and he brought his accusations against Job. God said, have you ever seen consider my servant Job? Well, he just served you for what he did, making accusations. So God knowing, he said, well, go ahead. And a trial, something transpired in that unseen realm of the spirit world of vital, utter importance. Now, I'm going to tell you a little experience I had. I'm not saying it was or it wasn't, but I had this experience. One night I had a dream. I don't hang my hats on a lot of dreams, but I had one in Jonesboro, and we was down there to see Perry Green, and when I got home, it bothered me so bad that I inquired, and every bit of it was true. So sometimes God has done that for me, just very seldom. Well, I had a dream, and there was a being, an elderly person appearing in midair before me. And I thought, is that Uncle Herman? Looked like, I said, and something said, this is an angel. In other words, and the reality hit me, he's from the other side. I can see him, and I said, don't leave. I know you're about to go, but tell me something about the other side before you go. And he said something that I'm not going to repeat. It's too personal. And then he said something else that I will tell you here in just a moment. Well, I woke up and I thought, oh man, that was just a dream. Oh my goodness. Boy, I was so disappointed that was a dream, because It left me so full of hope and glory and so blessed. And I got up, and Lisa was already out in the kitchen making coffee. We were living in a wonderful little house over in Kentucky. I loved that place. But at any rate, I told her a little bit about it, and I sat there and I began singing and humming just to myself, and I thought, boy, I wish that would have been real. Then all of a sudden I said, you don't say. The Bible doesn't say that. I know it doesn't say that. Don't tell me. And I looked over 2 or 3 places in Matthew where it said, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. My goodness. Was it? I don't know. I don't know if it was. I know he said something. And one thing was this, and I'll explain. This doesn't mean I'm holier than you all are. It means I'm a center of conversation. He said, I'll just tell you, your name is mentioned a lot in heaven. Now, don't be so cocky, Bruce Hall. If there's an elect child of God, their names are mentioned too. Why? Because the devil is constantly bringing accusations before the throne of God. And you're represented by the best lawyer that ever was, Jesus Christ. He's our advocate. He gets you off every time. Now, I know that sounds a little deep, and I may not have should have shared that with you. All of you are kind of looking at me funny. But I had a dream. Was it from God? I don't know. You choose. But I will tell you this. What did that scripture say? And Satan was there to resist it. He's there to say, oh, no, 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 no. This ain't fair. This ain't right. You can't bless him. Look what he done. He's got his hands on every decision that's handed down by the courts of heaven. He's there to contest it. Now, I'll say this, but the devil, in spite of that truth, that doesn't mean that God's just fighting and holding out and going, somebody come here and help me. I don't know if I can hold out any longer. The devil is not a problem to God. Then why? I don't know. The scriptures declares these things, and it's a realm of mystery that I see, but you don't see the full picture of it, and I can't fully understand it or explain it, but I believe it's going on. Yes. To show you a little more of it. We got now Daniel 10. Hold it a minute. Is that the one? Yeah. Boy, if I always, when I try to write this stuff down like Brother Tom does, I get all confused and fouled up. I've never been able to do that without... We know there, I'll mark some of this stuff. Brother Tom, I ain't going to do this no more because I get too fouled up of doing this. Verse 2 says, in those days, I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks. I ate no pleasant bread, neither came flesh nor wine in my mouth, neither did I anoint myself at all till 3 whole weeks were fulfilled. Now, what is going on here? There were some things that concerned Daniel greatly. He knew that God ruled in the affairs of men and that God was maneuvering and moving things. But he also knew that the devil there was working, and he wanted to stay abreast of what God was doing and all. So there were some matters that concerned him, and so he went to some type of fast here. I've read commentaries and all on it, and they claimed that it was a partial fast of some kind where he just cut off a lot of eating and all, or it may have been a full one. I don't know. But his heart was set on God. And he began to seek God intently. But no answer came. Can we all relate to that one, that we prayed and sought in earnest, and despite our pleadings, our tears, our weepings, and our crying, an answer just did not come. Heaven remained silent and nothing happened. Right. So rather than press on, we are forced to, rationalize and think, well, there are just some things we don't understand. We chalk it up as I don't know, God didn't do it, and we go on with our life. Sometimes that may be the best thing to do. Sometimes not. He gets in a prayer here, and I want you to know that prayer, now this all ought to come together if I've got it planned right. Dear Lord, help me. Prayer is not just a little bitty child crawling up on a lovey-dovey Santa Claus's lap and telling him everything he wants. I'm going to tell you something about real prayer. It is a fight. You will confront forces that are invisible to you, but they will, when they see you kneel and they see you set your face and they see you purpose in your heart to seek God and get an answer and understanding about things, I got news for you. They conjure up a full-scale attack. It's that important to them that you don't get through. And they will come with everything, and they don't let up. Now, I don't understand why prayers can be hindered, but let's just look at this a little bit further. Go to the same chapter, but look at verse 14. Or hold it a minute. Look at 12. How did I get that in there? Verse 12 said, Then said he unto me, Fear not, Daniel. Now this is what happened. I'm not going, let's just go on back a little ways. Verse 8, Therefore I was left alone and saw this great vision, and there remained no strength in me, for my comeliness was turned in me into corruption, and I retained no strength. Yet I heard the voice of his words. What the words is, if you'll see, there was a visitation there with an angel. It tells us that in verse 5 and 6. I'm just trying to go the short way around here. He heard a voice, and then I was in a deep sleep, and behold, a hand touched me, verse 10, set me upon my knees and said, O Daniel, man greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak unto thee. Stand upright. Get up on your feet. For unto thee am I now sent. And when he had spoken this word unto me, I stood trembling. Then said he unto me, Fear not, Daniel. Now look at this. For from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand and chasten thyself before God, thy words were heard, and I am come for thy words. In other words, Daniel, my presence here is a result or a product of your prayers. And I heard you the first day. Well, good Lord, what took so long? He's going to tell him. Verse 31, But the prince of the kingdom of Persia, what? Withstood me 21 days. Now, I'm going to stop reading right there just a moment. This prince of Persia was not an earthly prince. Do you think a human man could pull out a sword and fight an angel that's a spirit and hold him back? Not in a minute. These are demonic powers. We're not going to read it, but in Ephesians 6, you will see that there is a chain of command in the power in the kingdom of darkness. There are principalities. Look that word up. It means a ruler over a certain area. Look those things up. There's a chain of command. They're organized. And you know what? In the spirit realm, your prayers are spiritual things. They're not natural. Unless they're conjured up out of your own flesh and full of carnality. But if your prayers are out of the groanings of your heart, and they're birthed by the Spirit of God and led and inspired by the Spirit of God, all true prayer that gets answers has its beginning with God.